once you get, your candidates, here's some other things that tend to be a little bit challenging for recruiters, especially if they're not familiar with a particular industry. It can generate potential interview questions. So
Oh.
sometimes, it'll take them a while to think, how can I start asking the right question to this candidate? So it will help them, especially if there's something very technical they have to ask.
Mm.
Like for example, they have to search for an IT software engineer. They'll put in the questions, what can I ask, or what are the correct terminologies I should use when asking an interview question? It will do all of that for them. So ChatGPT gives you the questions. You can also ask it, what is the correct answer?
Mm.
It will also give you those. And, lastly, which again is a great kind of time saver, you can put in your notes and it will write the candidate summary for you. So
Wow.
whatever interview you had, it will just write the summary for you. So a lot of different things that we're piloting in order to save time and save, as you've mentioned, that administrative challenge or that administrative burden, and really just be able to spend more of the time with the candidates themselves. And
Mm.
what we found is that we're starting to see that at least there's a 37% improvement in completing the task. So it's taking them 37% less time in order to complete all of their tasks. So they can spend all of that time with the candidates instead
Mm.
of writing things up.
Good day. Welcome to the Leader's Edge. And today marks season 13, episode 12, the season ender. And what a way to end the season. We have a unique guest in Monica Maralit who will talk to us about recruiting technology. What's new? What's next? So, without further delay, I'd like to invite Monica to the virtual stage to introduce herself. Monica?
Thank you so much, Dino. It's so great to be here. I'm very excited to be a part of a Leader's Edge. My name is Monica Maralit, and I am the Senior Vice President for PSG Global Solutions. And PSG Global Solutions is a recruiting process outsourcer, and we serve clients all around the world. We have about 4,000 employees, and our focus and our expertise is recruiting and recruiting services. And we pride ourselves in being a tech-enabled company, and ways that we can use our tech-enabled recruiters to really supercharge our clients' internal recruiting teams. So that's what we do. And I'm really happy to be a part of this because I'm so excited about what we do here at PSG and really use technology to be able to empower recruiters and also anyone in HR who has to do recruiting, because it's the best way to really utilize technology.
Awesome. As I was looking at your website and as I was studying what the company is capable of doing, I was reading it with internal glee because I was heaving a sigh of relief, remembering the days when I had to do a ton of interviews and
Yeah,
I couldn't do the other four parts of HR just
yeah,
because I had to devote almost a week just to finding the right talent. And so
yeah.
maybe we can start off by asking the obvious. Um, how does PSG help organizations remove the very repetitive and the very arduous
Exactly.
task of recruiting? How does
Yeah.
it work?
Well, just like you, Dino, I've been in the industry for quite a while. And so recruiting, even 15 years ago, was very different. And what you talk about when you talk about repetitive tasks, I'm sure you remember what it was like when to try to find a candidate and then have to interview the candidate or look through their resume, take the notes, and then interview them. And, it was a very manual process.
Mm.
And today, very many of the steps are the same. where you have to market the position that you have available. And then you have to go out and find the candidates. You have to invite them to even, talk to you. And then you have to go through this resume and all of these different things. And then after that, you do a write-up. There are so many repetitive tasks
Mm.
that are done. So what we have done over the years at PSG is we have built a tech stack in order to remove some of those repetitive tasks so that we can just focus in on the candidate and really relating with the candidate and really speaking to them and really trying to have a valuable conversation. So one of the things that we did was we built an internal a database or what we call an applicant tracking system and also a performance management system. So you're probably familiar with that term, applicant tracking system or ATS. That's where you put all of your applicants into a system, and it's almost like a database and a tracking tool for all of the different applicants.
Mm.
So what we did was we built our own so that we could customize it to what our needs were, and we called it Compass. And Compass houses all of our different candidates that we need to reach out to.
Mm.
Within Compass, as you know, one of the things that you have to do is to be able to reach out to the candidates. Now, I'm sure you've tried this before. You call up a candidate, they don't always answer, right?
That's right.
You text them, they don't always answer. So you'll
They
have to keep
ghost you.
calm.
Yeah.
Exactly. They go to because they might not know who you are,
Mm.
how did you find their number? And so or they're just busy. And
Yeah.
so they never hear the opportunity of a great job for them.
Mhm.
So what we did was we created within our Compass tool a platform called ACE or Automated Candidate Engagement. And so what that does is it will reach out to the candidates that you've loaded into the system. It will send out a text message and an email customized for that particular candidate to reach out to them to identify if they are interested. And depending on whether they've clicked on the email or they have clicked on the text message or they have responded or they deleted it or whatever the case may be, ACE, through its algorithm, decides and stack ranks which candidates are most interested. So the
Mm.
recruiter doesn't have to guess if this person is interested. The tool itself will determine how interested candidates are, and it will stack rank all of your candidates. So if you put 100 in there, it will stack rank it based on interest, just based on the response or non-response from the
Mm.
candidate. That means then the recruiter can just go in and call the ones that are most interested and then leave the ones that are not. So they're not wasting time. So that's one way that we have been
Wow.
able to improve our efficiencies when it comes to identifying interested candidates and who is going to actually pick up first.
Mm.
So, I mean, you've been in recruiting, do you know? So you know that it's not that easy to find people who are interested or willing to talk to you. So that's one way we've done it.
Oh, that's true. Um, the way you've been describing the software and the application itself is something that I can resonate with because it sounds like an incredible labor saving
Yeah.
tool that
Yes.
allows somebody like me, for example, in HR, to be more visionary, to look
Mm-hmm.
for what makes more impact in the organization rather than to be mired in the admin side of
That's right.
work.
That's
Uh,
absolutely true.
it's just amusing that the way you describe the software reminded me a little bit about how my sister found her ideal husband.
Oh my
The-
gosh, this sounds like an interesting story. Tell me, Dina,
yeah,
how did you find a husband? I may
because
need this.
as a retired missionary, she basically gave her life to Jesus. In other words,
Mhm.
for almost her adult life, entire adult life, she was a missionary, and so she'd resigned herself to single blessedness. If the Lord wills, she'd never find a husband. And then one of her supporters decided to help her out and enrolled her in this program, paid program that automatically searches for ideal candidates for you. So my sister filled in the fields that said, what are you looking for? What kind of person. So she described her absolutes and her negotiables.
Hmm.
And in less than a day, she got three responses, all of them interested. And she reviewed them and spoke to all three until she
Hmm.
finally found the one that matched her perfectly. Uh,
Yeah,
and you'd never think that an online dating or partner finding tool actually works, but it did, especially in my sister's case. She's
that's
now
good.
happily married and living in Indiana too. Check it out, a librarian. She ended up with a librarian who curates classical music.
That sounds like a really good fit for her.
Yeah.
Just considering what she probably put in her interests and what
Mm.
she is interested in and was able to find something. So yes, recruiting
Yeah.
is a little bit like that too.
But what you describe is so much more exciting, because to me that means that the software shortlists for you the
Yes,
ideal candidates,
that's
especially
right.
those who are in fact interested. So
Yes,
when you talk to them, they're guaranteed to say, yeah, how do
yes,
i how do I get there from here? What do I need to do? um a question though is, a lot of people tend to be a bit wary of AI, and
mm,
my sensing is that the program or what you're using harnesses the power of AI
yeah.
to speed things up, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And so that's one of the things that we have a whole department that looks at new technology. So we really invested in a department that will look at new types of technologies and test them out. So they build different platforms, or we look at different platforms, and then we build projects around that to be able to test which ones are going to work well for us. So, one of the things, as you've pointed out, generative AI is one of the big new things nowadays. Chat GPT, Google Bard, those type of things are all out there. And everyone's super excited about using it, as they should be, because
Mhm.
it is very exciting. And, as we look through ways to do our job better, I think that that's one of the ways to do it. People are going to be a little bit wary, they're going to be a little bit scared, but that's just the way it is with almost everything that's new or technology that is new. Everybody's going to be a little bit suspicious,
Yeah.
and people should be a little bit wary and go into it not necessarily just cautious, but fully conscious about what the challenges are, but not necessarily be held back because of the challenges. Because there are so many positive things that will come out of this. So when we were looking at new technology, and we were looking at Bard as well as a Chat GPT, and we continue to do this now, we put together a project, and we have pilot teams who are working on them.
Mm.
And so for the recruiters, it turned out to be very, very interesting because it was so simple. It
Mm.
seems so simple to use. So
Mm.
the way we've used it for the recruiters, the way we're testing it now, we're doing it in multiple ways, but more specifically, we're looking at it to help us write the job descriptions. So you don't have to think about how to develop a job description. You just put it into the Chat GPT, and then it comes out for you. You just have to quality check it. That's the one thing you have to do, is quality check. It helps again with assisting with candidate outreach, very similar to ACE. It helps us determine how to reach out to a candidate. One interesting thing as well is writing a Boolean search string. Are you familiar with this? Um,
Not quite, but I've heard of it.
it's okay. Yeah, so for maybe a lot of your viewers, they may be familiar with a Boolean search string, and this is where you write up what you're searching for in a particular format, and you put that either onto Google, you can put it into any of the job boards, and then it will give you a list of different candidates
Mm.
that fit that criteria that you created. But what's difficult sometimes for recruiters is how to build that string to be
Mm.
able to find the right candidate. So ChatGPT and generative AI will help you do that. So you put in, what you might be looking for, and you tell it, create a Boolean string for this.
Ah.
Could be like an IT software engineer, and then it will write it up for you. Or create a Boolean string for a therapeutic nurse that's located in Indiana, and then it will write out the Boolean string for you. So it's very easy, and recruiters don't have to spend a lot of time trying to think of what's the right Boolean search.
Oh, that's
Another,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then once you get, your candidates, here's some other things that tend to be a little bit challenging for recruiters, especially if they're not familiar with a particular industry. It can generate potential interview questions. So
Oh,
sometimes, it'll take them a while to think, how can I start asking the right question to this candidate? So it will help them, especially if there's something very technical they have to ask. Like for example, they have to search for an IT software engineer. They'll put in the questions, what can I ask, or what are the correct terminologies I should use when asking an interview question? It will do all of that for them. So ChatGPT gives you the questions. You can also ask it, what is the correct answer?
mm,
It will also give you those. And, lastly, which again is a great kind of time saver, you can put in your notes and it will write the candidate summary for you. So
wow.
whatever interview you had, it will just write the summary for you. So a lot of different things that we're piloting in order to save time and save, as you've mentioned, that administrative challenge or that administrative burden, and really just be able to spend more of the time with the candidates themselves. And
Mm,
what we found is that we're starting to see that at least there's a 37% improvement in completing the task. So it's taking them 37% less time in order to complete all of their tasks. So they can spend all of that time with the candidates instead
mm.
of writing things up.
Oh, that's wonderful because time equals money. And any time that you can save, and the sooner that you can staff uh, talents that you need for an organization, the faster that the organization can move towards its business goals.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm. Oh, what you just described sounds to me like an algorithm written precisely to look for the right candidate that you want.
Yes.
And because this show has interviewed people from related industries, like for example, we've had Colin Blackwell, who talked about artificial intelligence and how he wanted to assure all of our viewers that it's not competing with us because we're thinking about it wrong.
Correct.
He's
That's right.
saying it's not artificial intelligence as much as it's augmented intelligence. In other words, it adds to our capability. And
Correct.
then when we interviewed Pags Corpus, who is a world recognized cybersecurity expert,
Mhm.
she said, you know, the things we need to be concerned about lies more in the area of privacy, I mean, data privacy and security. And then when we talk to Boogie Boy Don, who has his own organization that writes programs to help companies and agencies automate their systems, what he
Yep.
was saying is this will move us past what we think about as how we compensate people, because hourly rates won't really work anymore as much as per project, because
For
if
output.
AI
Yep.
is
Hmm.
helping them, then what
Yeah.
normally would have taken 1 week to write a script would take just minutes to do.
Yes.
Hmm.
That's right.
So,
Yep.
having heard all of those wonderful guests contribute their thoughts, uh, let me throw a question that some of their thoughts impel me to ask. Like, for
Okay.
example, how does the program protect the data, the privacy of, say, the applicants, so that they're fairly sure that it stays within?
Well, one of the things that we have to be very careful about, you're right, is the data privacy of people, especially when you're talking about candidates and you have their information. If you plug it into ChatGPT, for example, which is an open source, it becomes almost available to everyone else.
Mm,
Now, what you do have to do is build in guiding principles for your company and for your employees to make sure that they are not going to kind of go outside of the parameters of data privacy and fairness and things like that. So you have to build it into your policies and your procedures in order to be able to protect people. The other way to do it is as you're building in the application. So you may not necessarily use just an open source, but there may be something else that you use. You build it into the systems itself so that you can protect the privacy of others. It could be in ways, for example, that shows up as alerts if
Mhm.
an employee happens to put in information. Your system, if you build the system, your own platform, for example, we can build it into our platform that it can identify, oh, that was a social security number, or oh, that was a complete name with their birthday, or anything that happens to be personal information. So then it will give some sort of alert so that we can go in and check what the employee is doing, or correct the employee's behavior. So those are some ways that you can put it into the system itself. One is really educate the employees about data privacy and what should be and should not be put into an open source. And then the second thing is to potentially build that into your systems as well as, potentially alerts, or it could be something that kind of hinders them from putting certain things in. So those are a couple of ways to help with data privacy.
Monica, I can almost see the quandary that faces us as HR professionals where we're so grateful that social media exists because people no longer live in silos, but
Right.
we have access to who they are thanks to LinkedIn, thanks
Mm-mm.
to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's so much about people that they freely share anyway that
Mm-hmm.
allows us to find out more about a potential candidate even before we get to speak with them. And
Yeah.
yet, people are also very much concerned about their own privacy. So there
Mm-hmm.
is that conundrum between what they freely share and what
Yes.
they wish to keep hidden. So
Right.
how do you reconcile that seeming puzzle among people
Yes.
who want to protect their privacy and yet just keep sharing it with the public?
Yeah, that's, very personal. It's something that you yourself have to realize
Yeah.
that you want your privacy, but that you put everything out there. So that's something that I think that everyone has to be concerned about. If you want to keep your privacy, you want to keep certain things, to yourself,
Mm.
then don't post it out there. And I
Mm.
think that it's everyone's responsibility to take that to heart. If you want to keep your bank information, your social security numbers for those who are in the US, your address, those kind of things, then be wary of where you're posting,
Mhm.
or what you're posting out there. A lot of people demand that privacy, yet, like you said, they'll post, exactly where their address is. They're
I-
standing at the corner of here and there, or just walked outside my house, and it'll show their street name and their number. So, but then when somebody, comes to their house and tries to sell them something, they're like, "How did you know where I live?" Well, and the good
That's true.
and the good thing here is, one, there's personal responsibility, and there's also all of these different things that are online, basically saying if you post this on, you're basically giving access. You're allowing people to see this to yourself. So there's also those user acceptance things that probably not nobody reads. Everybody
Mm.
just goes down and goes, "I agree." But they should take the time to read some of that.
Monica, I'm so excited about PSG itself as an organization and the services that you can offer because to me, how it's coming across is the same way that SAP once upon a time came across to HR, where it
Mm-mm.
took many of the things that bogged us down, like applications for leave or inquiries about how much SL and VL they still have, which they
Yeah.
had to put into writing, submit to HR, and get a reply maybe next week. But
Yeah.
because of SAP, all they had to do was text it, and then they'd get a
Yeah.
response immediately. So what you're doing in your company is like that next great breakthrough that
Mm-hmm.
makes everyone's job so much easier. Could you take me through briefly how did PSG come about? what who's the visionary behind the organization? I mean,
Sure.
it's awesome. What you can do
Yeah.
is awesome, and just really curious.
Yeah, absolutely. I could absolutely tell you the history, but I've been with PSG now for about 14 years, and PSG started 15 years ago. So I started with them very, very early on,
Wow.
and I had the absolute pleasure of being able to work with the founders. So the founders of the company are Vivek Padmanabhan and Brian Cotter, and
Mm.
both of them worked for a company called eTelecare. So they're both
Oh.
consultants, McKinsey and Bain, and they worked for eTelecare. In addition to them, they also had the founder of eTelecare, Jim Frankie, who was also interested in, pursuing another endeavor after eTelecare. And then the fourth one was Aaron Green, and he is also a founder of PSG, or Professional Staffing Group, in Boston, now called ProPivotal. So the four of them basically had gone together and decided, what is the next endeavor they wanted to do. Jim, Vivek, and Brian had all been a part of the contact center world, or the BPO world, here in the Philippines. Italicare was one of the very first BPOs that started in 2000. And as it had grown, and they had decided they wanted to do something else and do something different, they thought, well, what else can we do? We don't want to go into the typical BPO, because by now everybody's doing it and everybody's there. And so they looked at different means, and they thought, well, here's an industry that has not done a lot of outsourcing outside of the US. Yet it has a lot of opportunity to be able to utilize outsourced recruiters here in the Philippines for a lot lower cost,
Mm.
but at the same quality that they would have in the US. So they basically looked at the Philippines and said, we've done great in the BPO world with eTelecare. The Filipino, they have great communication skills. They also have great interaction skills. A lot of the people are college educated. This is the right place to be able to do this new business. So that's the way they started. They said, we want to do recruiting because it's ripe for outsourcing for the US and around the world, because there's not a lot of it yet. And two, we want to do it in the Philippines because we know we're going to get the best talent out of the Filipino workers. And so they started this in 2008. Now, if you remember, 2008 was when the Great Recession was starting.
Right. Yeah.
So they took a huge chance to be able to start a new company in the
Mm.
middle of a recession.
Mm.
But they kind of believed in the company, they believed in what they were doing, and they had a great vision of what they could do with recruiting, the recruiting industry. And from there, I joined about a year later. There's about 20 people. There's only like 20 people in the company. And I had also come from eTelecare. And they asked me, hey, can you join us? We need some operations expertise to be able to build. And so that's how they built it. And that's how we grew. And again, just because of the need that was identified by them 15 years ago, and just because they were very, very conscious of how to target and service that market, we were able to grow. The interesting thing was we started doing a lot of technology because everybody was concerned about, not just cost, but also just the efficiencies of everything.
Mm.
So when we started, we did a lot of manual, like you had seen before. You do everything on Excel, you printed out paper. I remember we even had one client, he would do everything through fax. And I was like, I was like,
Oh, that brings back
that's bad.
memories.
I know. I was like, who still does faxing? um, so there was a great need for new technologies, and that was one of the things that the recruiting industry also was a little bit behind.
Mm.
So that's when they decided that they would kind of move into tech-enabled recruiters,
Mhm.
or building a technology and continuously building on that platform to help with efficiencies, to be more effective recruiters, to help with the quality of the candidates that we find for our candidates, for our clients. And so that's how it all started. And
Mm.
we continue to see this vision of being very tech enabled and just focusing in on using technology to really empower our recruiters to find great candidates.
That's wonderful. I was listening and I was wondering, is there a learning curve for people to adopt the technology? And if
For sure.
there is, does PSG provide the training and the tech support to help people get from here to there to
Yep.
using it effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. So for sure, we have not just training on the technology itself, but just the overall process of
Mm,
recruiting and the overall real vision of what they should be doing. So you start with, what you're doing as a recruiter really changes other people's lives. And
mm,
that's your ultimate goal is to be able to change others' lives by connecting them with great work. And from there, you focus in on the training itself on how to do the technical aspects of recruiting. And then we train on the systems and the applications that we're using. So we do take a lot of time to be able to show them all of the different ways that they can utilize the technology and how it can empower them. Now, Chat GPT and generative AI and the work that we're doing there is in a pilot mode right now. We've been doing it for a few months now. We've been kind of piloting the different ways that we can use it. But definitely as part of the roadmap is to be able to train the recruiters on how to utilize generative AI and specifically on how to ask questions or what we call prompt engineering. So how
mm,
to use the prompts correctly to be able to get the information that's needed. Now, once you have that information, though, information is just information unless you use it
mm,
in a way that is compelling with your candidates. So we also have to be able to train our recruiters on the soft skills, which is really how to connect to a person on a personal level, how to understand their motivations, how to understand their needs itself, and basically, what is the vision for this person's future so that they can connect them with the right job. And and there's, negotiating skills as well. And you can't do that all through just technology. You
mm.
have to be able to train your recruiters to be able to have that personal connection and be able to have those type of valuable connections with the candidates.
It sounds like you're describing the merging of AI with EQ for those who will be
Hmm.
using this technology. Because what with the great resignation that has been happening globally
Right.
because of the
Hmm.
pandemic, there really was a need to be able to fill all those vacancies as quickly as possible. Uh,
Yeah.
People have been, because you're based in the US, I guess, and you have offices uh, all over the world.
Yeah.
You probably noted how a sort of mass migration happened from California,
Yeah.
people moving over to Arizona,
Yep. Yeah.
and then the
Absolutely.
jobs just remaining unfilled.
Yes.
I hear stories about how even entry level jobs would require a signing bonus just to keep the candidates interested
Yes.
and signing
Yes.
up.
Right.
Uh,
That is
Unbelievable.
It is, yeah, no, it's absolutely true, and all of our recruiters are based, or the majority of our recruiters are based in the Philippines. But
Mm,
all of the work that we do is for the U.S. market, or most
mm,
of the work that we do is for the U.S. market. And now we're kind of going into other parts of the globe as well. But the majority of the work that we do is in the U.S. And just like you said, the Great Resignation, the whole migration
yeah.
of people away from the larger cities
Mm,
back to smaller towns or
mm,
to where they live because during the pandemic, everyone basically saw, oh, well, I can do my job from wherever I am. I can do it
right.
remotely. I can go home. And so the cost of living in Arizona, for example, is a lot less than in California. Or if they went home to Wisconsin,
Mm,
it's going to be a lot less than it's going to cost in Seattle. So that was one absolutely an area that was it's a little bit of a struggle, and there's always kind of a way to be able to talk to people,
mm,
to be able to identify, where are the right people and can they do that particular job in the location that it's required. A lot of things also, a lot of ways that we also help our clients is we give them information that we hear from all of the different candidates as part of the market research so that they
Mm.
understand the market and the candidates that they're trying to reach and
Mm.
all of the different challenges and all of the different reasons why we may not be able to fill these positions right away.
Mm.
And one of the things, like you said, is potentially how do you attract people? And it could be through compensation, right? It could be through that sign-in bonus. And you're absolutely right. I was in San Francisco late last year, and I was just walking by and saw like a burger. I can't remember which burger joint it was, but the hourly wage was almost $30 an hour. And I was like, I think I need to join. $30 an hour. That was amazing. And so that's one way is to be able to attract people, but we give that information to our clients, saying,
Mm.
here is all of the different things that we've heard in the market based on the candidates that you want, but here's what they want. So that's also another way that we try to help our clients.
The description that you gave about the software and what it can do is so exciting because for me, if I were a recruiter, that would imply things like getting a solid idea of the profile, the needs profile of an applicant, and what
Hmm.
a company can offer. Like, for example, if I were trying to recruit a mother of three, for example, then
Right.
that would mean that I would need to be prepared with telling her, hey, there are a whole boatload of good schools where your kids
Hmm.
can study if you move to this area where
Hmm.
our client is looking for somebody like you,
Yep.
or if her need is to have a daycare center so she could go to work while her children are there and looked after, then that
Yeah,
would have to be part of what a recruiter needs to be prepared to share to
that's right. Hmm.
attract a particular client.
Yes.
um Interestingly, I was wondering, is there a future wherein PSG might move into the other areas of HR? I'll explain. Because
Okay.
what you're doing is already exciting in the area of recruitment. But
Hmm.
then with AI and all of the tools related to it, I imagine it might also help out in other areas such as employee relations, maybe
Hmm.
even in wages and compensation.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I'm certain that it can already be rewritten to help with training as a
Hmm.
need, because then it would study the profile of those who are keen on learning something, and it would
Yep.
recommend a curriculum and a series of interventions that would make sense for a particular candidate. So is PSG thinking about growing in those areas, or for now staying with helping companies find the right candidates?
Yes, I think, for the most immediate future, we are really focused in on recruiting services
Mm.
all around the world. And we have, if you're, familiar with PSG, late last year, we were actually acquired by Teleperformance. And
Mm.
Teleperformance is a large BPO, a very one of the top global BPOs, and we've been so grateful because we've had so many different opportunities to be able to start our recruiting services in different parts of the world, not just the US and Canada. So that's one of the areas that we really have been trying to really focus in on for the more immediate future is to continue
Mm.
to grow in the recruiting services, but start to go into different geographies and locations. What we are doing is expanding what we're doing for recruiting. So we're moving into a lot more of recruiting marketing and how do we help our clients through the market research so that they can
Mm.
make better choices or better opportunities for the candidates and for the employees as well, by giving them that information and market research. It's not, I don't think though it is far away that we would be looking at other types of services. there's a service called employer of record that people keep asking us to do. And in the past, we've said no, or managed services. They've asked us, can we do this? And so more and more, we're starting to say yes to those type of things because there's a demand and there's a need for it. And so we sometimes get into these different services because of a demand from our clients, and then it kind of starts to stretch outside of just recruiting. I
Mm.
envision as well, one of the newer things that we are doing also, and it'll likely start in the first half of next year, is recruiting for Philippine workers to be deployed all around the world. So,
Wow.
and this is not new. It's not a new concept. There's a lot of agencies that will have looking for nurses that will go to the US, for example. And so we're moving into that as well because we believe that, obviously the Filipino workers all around the world add value to wherever they are. But we also want to be able to provide eventually some type of training for that particular industry. So that moves into your point about training. Like, how do we develop training to and empower these Filipino workers before they go out
Mm.
into other countries, and that, make sure that they're prepared. So I envision that that would be something in the very near future when it comes to what we do and kind of expanding outside of recruiting services, moving into training and development to prepare people for that next job.
Monica, I was just thinking as you were sharing that there are two other industries that would love PSG's help in growing their business. One would be maritime staffing,
Absolutely.
because because there's such a frequent demand for new seamen who
Yes.
can get deployed, and one of their key pain points has always been wading through the red tape to get visas renewed, to get
Yep.
all of the permits done efficiently.
Yes. Yes.
And then the other industry that I was just thinking would be a great growth area would be in the pharma industry,
Hmm.
because I noted that big pharma will often have very, very detailed records or dossiers about doctors, so that when they do approach them to promote their new medication, they know how to trigger the right response because they know
Yeah.
their interests. And but
Yes.
having something like what you already have for recruiting to help those who are trying to promote their medications would be
Hmm.
such a boon.
Yeah.
um, because right now I know that some med reps carry what they consider their Bible, which is all the data they have about a particular doctor. But hard copy, oh come on.
Hmm.
If that could be on their phone, and then
Exactly.
they'll say, oh, it's his birthday today. Oh, his
Mm.
son graduates
Yes.
next week. Or if that data could be at their fingertips,
Yes.
um, that would help them
Yep.
to recruit the doctor towards being an advocate for what they have to offer. My mind is just
It's
blown away
great. Yeah.
by
Yeah.
the possibilities of what PSG can do.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny that you should mention maritime services, because that's probably the next endeavor after the what we call land-based workers, the
Mm,
nurses and potentially engineers and hospitality and travel workers that would be deployed globally.
mm,
Maritime is actually another one that we are looking at
mm,
potentially to start up again. We have seen that there is a client demand for that, for Philippine workers to be able to move into
mm.
maritime services. So it's not far. I mean, you are right, you're spot on, Dino, in finding an opportunity for us, but it's something that we're looking at probably later next year. So very exciting to be able to do that
I,
and be able to provide that service.
I'd be very happy to hook you up with the owners of two of the biggest maritime recruitment companies here in the Philippines, because uh,
Absolutely.
when I talk to them, it's one of the things that they keep bringing up as, things would go better for us if.
Yeah. Hmm.
So do let me know. Reach out to me, and
Yes,
I'll
yes,
arrange
absolutely.
I'll arrange a
Yeah.
meeting between you
I
and
would
me.
love that. Yeah, I would love to do that. I mean, I think that any way that we can help the Filipino workers and help them kind of go abroad and be able to bring that value globally would be wonderful. And I do think that, as we build recruiting services, it's also about training and developing the people to be able to do it well.
Mm,
And I think your idea as well about being able to understand the candidate, like the doctors, for example, and understanding the personal side of them and being
mm,
able to reach out at a particular maybe milestone of their life, the birthday, their son graduating, and all of that. Again, goes to how you have to have a personal touch and a
mm.
personal connection with your candidates or with whoever you're going to be interacting with in order to have a little bit more edge and that you're not just, a robot doing a transaction, but you're a
True.
real person who cares about the candidate or who cares about the person that you're going to be interacting with.
Mm. Uh, do you have like a fearless prediction about how how PSG might be more tightly integrated with HR from around the world within, say, the next 2 or 3 years? What do you might be the ideal picture?
I think I think there are maybe a couple of ways that PSG could expand its services outside of recruiting, but still within the kind of HR
Mm,
world, or even, adjacent to it, I suppose. One is when it comes to seamless onboarding into a new company. So typically in recruiting, if you have your recruiting department, in a company, your recruiting department recruits the employees and then they hand them off to
mm,
wherever they're going to go. Maybe
mm,
it's to a training class or maybe it's directly to a different department. But there is no real onboarding of an employee or no real programs of onboarding employees in a way that makes the employee or new employee feel like they're integrating into a new home.
mm,
And when you work at a company or you work for any company, you're working there 8, 9 hours a day. That's, basically your whole day. You have to make it feel like it's meaningful and purposeful for you to go there. So I think
mm,
an onboarding service in where we would consult for the clients and saying, hey, let's build out an onboarding program for you so that each one of your candidates or each one of your new employees has a great experience because what will happen is if they start out having a great experience at the recruiting stage and has a great experience at the onboarding stage, they're more likely to stick around. So the
right.
retention rate is going to be much higher, and that investment that you made at the very beginning is going to be much longer because you've made the employee feel that there is meaning and purpose in what they're doing and that they made the right choice by joining the company. So that retention of that employee is going to be a little bit longer. So I do see that potentially as an opportunity for us. Another area I think also, just because we get a lot of the information from the candidates about compensation and about the benefits that they're looking for, is to move into something along the lines of payroll and benefits or compensation and benefits consulting. So that we would give that again and give that information to the clients or potentially build out compensation and benefits programs that will support them based on the market that we know. And again,
Mm,
coupled again, having a great experience when you're recruiting, having that great compensation and benefits package that we've built, and then having that great onboarding program and experience. The candidate becomes an employee who's going to be there long term. And that's
mm.
really what you want for an employee is to be able to have that longevity so they continue to contribute to the companies.
Monica, a question that I'd like to ask, and this might be a bit sensitive, but I think it's something the viewers are often very curious about because we had an episode where we interviewed Kajuk's Bradbury, who spoke on inclusivity in the
Mm-hmm.
hiring process. And so, um, how does specifying a particular profile for an employee that they're looking for occur? Is it from PSG's end, or does the client specify that this is what they want
Mm-hmm.
and this is what they don't want? I mean, it,
Yes, they do. So they do indicate the skills that they are looking for in a
okay.
particular in a particular type of work that they have to fill for. So we're looking for particular skills.
Hmm.
At times they may indicate, we also want to make sure that there's diversity in the hires. So
Okay.
when we get candidates, we try to make sure that, first of all, the skills are there, because if the skill isn't there, the job is not right for them.
Mm.
And then we try to make sure that the type of candidates have a kind of a wide range of diversity, so that when we present them, then the clients have the opportunity to be able to identify which ones work best for their companies.
Mm.
So um, what we will not do is ever, if a client says we only want people from ages this to that,
Oh.
we're we won't do that, because that potentially brings up issues and problems by identifying specific ages. You're only looking for people who are young because of this and that. So we don't do that.
Mm.
But if they are typically looking for people who are more junior in that particular role or that sector, because they don't need somebody who is overqualified. You need somebody who's a little bit of a newbie. Then we will try to identify people who fit into that category. So it is one area that, because humans tend to take pieces and they try to connect the dots
Mm.
when they don't understand or they don't exactly know everything. They try to fill in the gaps with things that they think that they know. It is something that you have to be able to make sure that you train and take the time to train your recruiters on understanding diversity and understanding inclusion as well. That's another area that PSG is building a program on, in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So our DEI group is called PSG United, and so we're trying to also build that within the company, so that our employees understand that we do have DEI practices within the company, and also why it's important when they are doing their job to make sure that that's also included.
Wow. All right. So I love the answer because the world is so sensitive these days, and the age of political correctness.
Mhm.
We do need to adapt to it. Just as we have learned to adapt to the pandemic, we also adapt to the changing mindsets
Yeah.
of the people that we're trying to recruit. Um,
Mhm.
Monica, how do people reach out to you or to PSG should they want to engage the services of the company?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach us at our website, psgglobalsolutions.com. We are also on LinkedIn, of course, at PSG Global Solutions. We have a sister company that's also called Find Human Resources. So
Mm.
that's also our website, as well as you can look for us on LinkedIn too. And if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm also on LinkedIn, Monica Maralit. You can just look me up. I'm there. And don't hesitate to reach out and connect with me. I would be happy to connect with anyone who is interested to learn more about what we do at PSG and learn more about generative AI and all of the tech stack that we have at PSG.
Wonderful. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are listening to this, do recognize that today there is really no need for us to be fearful of AI because, as PSG demonstrates, it can be such a wonderful tool to helping us achieve our recruitment goals. And so, if you learned a lot from what you've just heard today, do write some notes, give us some feedback because our guests do look forward to finding out how you learned from what you just heard. And if you do like the content, consider clicking like, share, and subscribe. And we'd like to also let everybody know that for our season opener, that's season 14, episode 1, we will be having Rosie Wu, who will talk about live with vision and lead with wisdom. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in behalf of the my fellow hosts in the Speakers Bureau and in the Leaders Edge, we'd like to thank Monica Maralit for being our guest today and PSG for coming up with this breakthrough. Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dino. It's been a great hour to spend with you.
And ladies and gentlemen, always remember that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day.